Hi, I'm really excited to introduce tonight's Product Tank discussing Netflix 2021 product strategy with the I must say, very charming Gibson Biddle. So before I do that, I just want to do the usual sort of housekeeping. So I want to make sure that you all follow us on Twitter and send out some tweets letting everybody know what they're missing out on. We will be broadcasting live on YouTube, as you can see, so do say hello in the comment box on the right-hand side of the screen and make sure to tell everybody where you're watching from. So given we all can't sadly be together in person, we're going to try to make this session as interactive as possible. So do make sure to leave any comments or questions for our speakers and post them at any point throughout the event, and don't just leave them to the Q&A where they might get missed. So we will be having a Q&A session at the end, and Stephen will be picking out your questions to discuss with Gibson and our panel. So if you would like to, let me see if I can get my slides to work. There we go. If you would like to write for Mind the Product, speak or sponsor any upcoming events, or find out more information about joining the Mind the Product, then simply reach out to either myself, Stephen, or Graham. So I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsor Fintrue, who are hiring at the minute if you wanted to have a nosy on their website. I know usually the money from sponsors goes towards some lovely, refreshing beverages and some delicious mouth-watering pizza. Anything with barbecue base is a personal favourite of mine, maybe controversial. But with events becoming remote and given the current pandemic, tonight's sponsor money has been donated to the great cause that is Action Cancer. So although next month things are going to change, so we are actually having our first in-person event of 2021 on the 6th of August. We will sadly have to limit our numbers due to COVID, but it is going to be a very worthwhile event, not just because of the alcohol and the pizza, which will be there, but because the lovely Brona Smith from Whitespace will be facilitating a harm workshop on how to consider the potential societal, physical and emotional harm when we're building out products. So can't wait to see you guys there. Can't wait to have a drink with you all in person as well. So we'll put the details of that up on Meetup in the days to come as well. So you guys are in for a really great treat tonight. So I'm going to hand you over to Stephen to chat more about the details of tonight.
Thanks so much, Elise. Okay, so I'm sure I don't need to really tell you all, but tonight's event will be an introduction by Gibson Biddle, who we have. He will be talking about 3 strategy frameworks that will help us enable product leaders to define their product strategy. In that talk, Gibson will also bring to life those frameworks just by presenting essentially a mock sort of 2021 product strategy for Netflix, where he is also the former VP of product. Gibson will sort of talk about how we use strategy on our day-to-day decision making, and he'll do that by using some modern Netflix use cases, including what is now the obligatory COVID-19 question as well. But before we get started, and I think Elish, you have indeed, thank you very much. We have a QR code on screen there. So before I hand you over to Gibson, I'll ask you all to get your phones, click on that link as well, and I will pop up the link for anyone who wants the direct link as well. So yeah, there's a QR code there. Make it super easy for you. Just hold up your camera on your phone. That should bring you to Slido. We will also, just to make
QR code there, make it super easy for you. Just hold up your camera on your phone.
Sorry about that. Just to make it super easy as well, I'm going to, if we can share the link also into the YouTube comments as well. But for any of you who have seen Gibson talk before, his talks are very interactive. This is largely because of Slido as well. So in that, we've got some, you can ask messages, you can do some polling, which Gibson will talk about in a moment. But also just want to call out that this whole event is being recorded onto YouTube. So at the end, we will share the link. You can also download the slides for you as well. So don't worry about taking any sneaky screenshots of any of the slides. You can just relax and enjoy the questions and the content as well. We will just be wrapping up hopefully at the end, time dependent, with a little bit of a Q&A. So do feel free to post questions into either YouTube or into Slido as well, and we will get those questions to Gibson and the panel. And then just to wrap things up, we will have a survey at the very end just to get your feedback on how you thought the event went. But joining us tonight, we also have a panel. So we have Gibson obviously joining us from San Francisco, but tonight we have a panel of local product people to complement that. Some of you will be more familiar with these people, but we do have an audience from outside of Belfast, which is really nice to see. Some even from Ballymena, it seems. So it is maybe worthwhile just the panel giving themselves an introduction. So I will pick on you first, Eilish, if you wouldn't mind giving us a quick intro.
So yes, Ballymena, very exotic. So I am Eilish. I am venture architect at Whitespace, huge Netflix fan. I must say that I particularly appreciate the continue to watch feature that's come into place. It has put my productivity in all other matters way up. So appreciate that.
Thank you, George. And I will pick on yourself next, Alison. I'll just...
Hi, so I'm Alison Coote. I'm one of the product leaders at Gibson Software. Also a big Netflix fan, and yeah, really have started binge watching quite a bit during COVID. Last series, I think, was called the Bold Type, which got me hooked. That's a bit of a chick flick series.
That's great, thank you. And then lastly, we have Emma.
Hey, so my name's Emma Mulholland. I'm leading the product team at Instill. It's a local, it used to be an engineering practice, but we're kind of moving into being a product practice. So I'm hoping to learn loads of stuff here that we can help our clients with as well. I also like Netflix. We were talking about things we'd watched just before this, and I actually watched Shadow and Bone recently. So that's the last thing that I watched. That's me. And that's also my puppy, by the way. Just like a photo. It's my pandemic puppy called Sully. But I've got a friend to take him out, so he's not going to distract anyone tonight. He likes to get involved.
Good. Thank you, Emma. Okay, so now I guess on to the main attraction, Gibson. So I'll give you a quick sort of intro just before I hand you over. Gibson was VP of Product at Netflix starting in 2005, and then in 2010, he became CPO of Chegg, which is a textbook rental and homework company that went public in 2014, from memory. Today, Gibson is a teacher, speaker, writer, advisor. I'm sure there's more as well, but thanks to COVID, we have managed to get Gibson to join us here. So yeah, definitely silver lining of the current situation. So I guess with that, I will hand you over to Gibson.
Cool, Stephen. Thanks. Hey, Eilish, Alison, Emma, and I think Graham's hiding in the background, but I might terrorize you further. Anyways, hey, Stephen, can you make my screen sort of put me up with my screen sort of side by side for a bit?
Yeah, of course. There
cool.
We go. Oh, no, hold on 2 seconds. I'll just have to remove a couple of people, but we'll do that.
Yeah, let's remove a couple of peeps. We'll bring them back. It's all good. Awesome. Okay, that's awesome. Hey, so if you haven't found it, Stephen dropped into chat the link for Slido, and I'm just trying to get to know peeps a little bit, see where you're from. I'm very curious about your movie taste. So love to know if you've watched Stranger Things, BoJack Horseman, Lupin, or Everest climbing documentaries, or none of the above. If you haven't used Slido before, one of the tricks is you can just hold up your phone as though you're taking a photo of that QR code. You don't click on it. A link will magically pop up, and then you can engage in answering these questions. To know me, I've enjoyed Stranger Things, BoJack Horseman, Lupin, and Everest climbing documentaries. But just think for a moment about Netflix's effort to understand the movie taste of 200 million members, which is probably like 600 or 800 million folks if you include all those family profiles and the folks that you're sharing your account with, and that's okay. So I have one question before we begin, and this is, I call it provisional decision. I'm going to give you very little data, very little information, and the question is, should Netflix launch a feature called Netflix Party, and it lets members all over the world watch the same movie or TV show at the same time. It lets you chat with each other while you're watching it, exchange emojis, heckle, all of that stuff, even when you're apart, which, it's helpful given the last 15 months that we've had all around the world. Just by the by, I'm in San Francisco right now. I split my time between here and Central Oregon, a town called Bend, where I do a lot of skiing and backpacking. Stephen, can you remember this number for me?
I can indeed.
Good.
Yeah, can indeed.
It looks like 2/3 are leaning forward with this Netflix party, but we'll discuss this case at the end. And then you've already figured out, but you can ask questions using Slido, and you can also ask questions in the chat. When I look awkwardly to the right, I'm looking to see the chat in YouTube. I guess over there, yeah, it's called chat there. Anyways, and I'll answer all questions. Sometimes I can't do it in person. I do this thing called Ask Gib, this Ask Gib newsletter. So I eventually answer all the questions, but this is a free product newsletter that I do. Stephen's already said some wonderfully nice things about me, so thanks for that, Stephen. So I'm just going to go for it to talk about Netflix's 2021 product strategy. And then I just want to, Elish and Emma and my friend, let's see, Allison, you peeps are all out there, correct? Awesome.
Hey there.
I'm just testing Stephen's producing capabilities, and you're doing great, Stephen, so thanks so much. But I'm going to bring you into these juicy cases in a little bit. So stay attentive, okay? Okay, let's do it. You don't have to take copious notes. And Stephen, you can drop those panelists for a bit. I'll tell you when to bring them back. All the stuff that you need, the PDF is waiting at that site, but you don't need to go there yet. All right, I want to tell you a little bit about my early career. This is the first hit product I ever built. It was called Sesame Street Elmo's Preschool. It was very delightful product for 2, 3, and 4-year-olds. Entire preschool curriculum in a box. And that company was called Creative Wonders. I was a co-founder there. We sold Creative Wonders to, some of you may recognize him. Let me know in the chat. This is Kevin O'Leary, who's Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank, but he was the CEO of the Learning Company and sold that company to him, and then helped the Learning Company to grow up with Reader Rabbit, Oregon Trails, sold that company to Mattel. And then that was very exciting because we sold the company for $4 billion, but it was also a celebrated disaster. We lost a year later. Mattel spun it all back out and took down a write down of $3.6 billion. And this was an important lesson for me because I learned how important it was to build hard to copy advantage. It turned out that a lot of other companies had essentially copied our work. And that's why it became so devalued. So in my first half of the career, I did a lot of work with kids. And the second half of the career, this is Reed Hastings. He's the CEO of Netflix. This is circa 2005. Many folks outside the States, United States, don't know that Netflix began as a DVD by mail company. It was started actually way back in 1997. We didn't launch streaming until January of 2007. And Reed interviewed me for that VP product role, and he really asked me 2 questions. He said, "Hey, Gib, can you delight customers?" And I said, "Hey, I built Elmo's Preschool," and luckily his kids had been delighted. And the second question he asked, "Hey, can you do consumer science?" And I knew what he meant because I had asked him what he wanted his legacy to be. And consumer science is basically the scientific method that he would say, like, I'm not like Steve Jobs. I don't really naturally understand people's tastes. But if we can experiment to discover what resonates with customers and what doesn't, I think we can be very successful. And so in answering the question, can I do consumer science? Can I do A/B testing, better living through math? I said, absolutely. I lied a little. But it was at Netflix that I learned a lot more about strategy, and in particular, the importance of building hard to copy advantage. So Stephen introduced me. I was at Netflix from 2005. I went on to my next startup, Chegg, in 2010. I look for startups with a proof of concept that are ready to scale, and then I help them to grow, and then I do the next thing. So I've got 3 chapters for you tonight. The first, I'm going to share a couple of strategy frameworks for you. And then I'm going to pretend that I'm back at Netflix and I'm going to share what I imagine the Netflix 2021 product strategy would be. So I'll sort of drop into a role. And then we've got some juicy cases at the end. What would you do if you were the product leader? And we'll have that discussion with Elish and Allison and Emma. But using Slido and chat, we'll bring everybody else into the room. Is all good, Stephen? Can I go for it?
Yeah, can indeed. Go ahead.
Good. Can you understand my funny accent well enough?
So long as you can understand my funny accent, I think we're okay.
Okay, very good. Okay, so these frameworks. So I want to begin with my definition of strategy. And this Hamilton Helmer is actually an economics professor at Stanford. And the way he defines it, it's a route to continuing power in a significant market. So think back to 400 BC. You're somewhere present day China. You've got spices, tea, metal, jewels, silk, and you're trying to figure out how to deliver it to London, maybe even Belfast. And the question is, should you do that by land or by sea? You're an explorer, and the explorers set out to do this. What you're looking at is the Silk Road that has stood the test of time. That became this route for significant market. It's hard to copy. This section, if you look carefully, it's right at the Great Wall of China. But it created, an amazing worldwide e-commerce opportunity. This is sort of how I think about strategy, that route, that exploration. And why do I focus on strategy? It helps product leaders all over the world to do the hardest thing, which is to communicate an inspired vision of the future. And it blends chaos and discipline. So invention, innovative things are born in the shadows, in the mud, and you just do things to bring them to life. But if you're not careful, you'll over-discipline, over-process things. You'll squeeze the life out of the creative process. And strategy helps you to find that sort of careful balance between discipline and chaos. And strategy helps you to form hypotheses about how you can delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. And margin-enhancing, just a fancy way to say make money. And then it facilitates prioritization. So as product leaders, we can do anything. We just can't do everything. So imagine if you had 100 things on a list, how do you choose what are the top 10 things that you will focus on? And then they help communicate a plan. So as companies get big, people begin to get confused about what's really going on, how do things fit together, and strategy can help with that as well. So I just want to share with you briefly 3 frameworks. That reading at the end, I actually share, I have a 12-part essay, How to Define Your Product Strategy. There's a chapter for each, but I'm just going to focus on 3 right now. So the first I call Glee, and the Glee is about helping to articulate a product vision. How will you first get big? How will you lead from there and expand even further over the course of 10 or 15 years? And then the GEM model is about how do you prioritize 3 forces: growth, engagement. Engagement is a proxy for product quality, and monetization. That's really economic efficiency. Do you make money? And then I've already shared with you the DHM, your ability to delight customers in these hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. And the purpose of the first is to help define a long-term product vision. The second is achieving cross-functional alignment. If I walk into a startup or a company and ask everybody, how do you force rank growth, engagement, and monetization? If I get 3 different or 6 different answers, I know that this is a company fundamentally unaligned across marketing, product, tech, what have you. And DHM are those hypotheses. So the DHM framework, I'm going to start here. So this is the way I think of the product leader's job. Your job is to delight customers in these hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. And I sort of arrived at this model at Netflix. You can give me a yes or a no in the chat. Let me know, yes, I'm a member, or no, I'm not. I just want to get a sense. It's usually around 80 or 90%, so thank you in advance. But I'm guessing that the things that delight you about Netflix are included on this list. And it took many, many years of experimentation to arrive at these things. Lots of failed experiments, but we know and understand today that these are the things that delight most folks today. And then margin enhancing, the ability to create profit so you can reinvest it in making the product even better in the future. This is what margin enhancing is about. And I think most of you understand the value of an all-you-can-eat subscription. You're paying about $15-18 a month. Sorry, not to do the translation. Netflix has been experimenting with prices and plans forever. You've probably noticed that each year the price goes up about $1 because Netflix is trying to invest more money in original content, which is what most folks want. One thing that most folks don't truly understand is the economic advantage that Netflix has. It actually knows the member taste of 200 million members. And so when it wants to bring all content to you, it just wants to pay the right amount. So it will make guesses or forecasts. And today they're very, because of all the personalization data, they're pretty good. So they anticipated, for instance, that 100 million people would watch Stranger Things. And because of that, they made an investment of $500 million in the series. And then they also made a guess that 20 million people would watch BoJack Horseman. And based on that, invested about 100 million. And I could see from the early movie taste questions that it's about right. But this ability to right size, to know the taste data of people all over the world is an incredible source of economic efficiency. So here's the question that I want to put to you. If I gave you $500 million to start a startup to compete with Netflix, what would you find hard about that? So the real question is, what makes Netflix hard to copy? Elish, you there?
Here. Yes. How you doing?
What's hard to copy about Netflix?
Oh, there's plenty.
Okay, tell me.
So the first time I heard about Netflix was actually when I was doing my master's in stats, and there was a fella, he was really lucky, got to do the Netflix use case, and he got Netflix data and got to do all your mathematical models in personalization. Meanwhile, I had to work out who was going to die next, so it was a little bit less glam. But I was like, that is really cool. Like, what are they going to do next? So you've got specifically the technology side of things. But then actually, my husband told me last month I've got like 4 streaming services on the go, and I had to delete one. And I had like a meltdown. I was like, well, you're not deleting Netflix. He goes, you haven't used it in a month. And I was like, no, like I have used Netflix since I was at uni watching it on a laptop because I didn't have a TV. And there's just something about that, the da-da that kind of comes on. You're about to watch something that, like, we've all got stressful jobs. We're product managers, right? So you're like, oh, it's time to relax. So like, it's just
so now, can you summarize what you're seeing from the audience on this screen? What do you see? What do you see?
Original content, brand, personalization, which is what I was sort of on about with the mathematical models. And the fact that it's exclusive content. So we've sort of seen that with a few of the movies, that it's like you can only get it on Netflix. It's not even coming out in movie, in the cinema anymore. Technology.
I can see Graham Stewart's response. He's in the chat. He's talking about original content and simplicity. It's a debatable thing. Is ease of use a hard to copy thing? For sure, the original content is hard to copy. Okay, I'm fishing. I'm looking around. I'm seeing 3 out of 4 forces. I love that brand came up, because often with product leaders, I have to be very patient. I actually see there's one little word in there, network, which is important to me. But Eilish, thanks for playing. So the things that I look for in the work that I do are these 4 forces. So the brand, Netflix, we set out to build this brand where movie enjoyment was made easy. A bit to Graham's point. There's lots of unique technology, and Eilish was talking about it quite a bit, but personalization has really been important. There's lots of right answers, but generally, the companies develop unique technology, and that makes them hard to copy. And then the reason I was fishing on the network word, In the early days, we actually tried to create a network effect around friends. We thought, hey, you would connect with your friends on Netflix, you get great movie ideas from them. It was a failed experiment, essentially a social strategy for movies. Kind of perplexing that it didn't work. But later, we created a device ecosystem, a network effect, where every screen in the world today is magically pre-wired to let you watch Netflix anytime and anywhere, which is way cool. And everybody got original content. I'm just the fancy word for that is economies of scale. Because Netflix has more than 200 million members, it can afford to spend about 20 billion in its content. And poor Amazon can only spend 8 billion. I just love saying that. Combination of Hulu and Disney Plus is spending about 8 billion, and poor Apple can only spend 2 billion. So economy of scale, if you get big, it gives you lots of advantage. In this case, you can invest more in content because you can amortize that cost over so many. So I've done a summary here of like 20 odd high-level theories and hypotheses, product strategies about how to delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. You'll notice that about a third of them worked out. You know, the green is good, the yellow is, okay, and the red, these are all failed experiments. If you look at the very bottom, you'll notice that interactive stories, for instance, are an experiment today, not known. And Netflix will be experimenting with AR and VR stuff as well. So this just goes on, but it often surprises folks that, you know, getting it right 5 or 6 times out of 18 or 20 is just fine if you can delight customers in these hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. So this is how I think about product strategy. This link is waiting for you. So I just gave you a highlight on 3 of the models, but I actually go into 8 or 10 of them in the reading that's on that PDF. Stephen, is everything good?
Yeah, all good, all good. There's plenty of questions coming in, so yeah, at any point we can dip into those.
I'm just going to keep doing my thing. Okay, so now it's my second chapter. This is when I'm going to pretend I'm back at Netflix and I'm going to share what the Netflix strategy is. So imagine I'm standing in front of 1,000 employees, maybe the board of directors meeting, investors, whatever. Hello. I just want to remind folks of the product that we set out to build. Netflix is a movie subscription service that delivers fast, easy entertainment in a friendly, straightforward way. This is the positioning of the product. This is the product that we set out to build. And ostensibly, we were working to build a brand where movie enjoyment was made easy. Neve Savage was my brand partner. He wanted to tattoo that phrase, movie enjoyment made easy, to my forearm so I would never forget it. And I think we've made pretty good progress of delivering on that. In the product vision, and if you know me, I'm sharing now the Glee model. We set to get big on DVD. That was our initial beachhead. That was the way that we first built an early audience with the DVDs going back and forth in the mail. And then our second step in the vision was to lead streaming. And we did that in January of 2007. And once we were an all-digital business, we could finally expand worldwide. So the first time, and now you see the G, the L, and E in Glee. For the first time, we became an international product in 2010 with Canada. It was the first time it was a streaming-only service. And then most of you see that Netflix, big time investment in original content. And then as a product leader, it's always important to have a guess of what's next. And you can see these are all fundamental step level innovations. And so it's always good to have a fuzzy vision of what might be next. And what might be next, the current experiments are all about interactive stories. You can see my Glee model can go on forever. And so if you look carefully at Netflix, you see some of the early experimentation, this hypothesis about will the interactive stories pan out or not. But if you have kids, you might have noticed DreamWorks Puss in Book. This is a choose your own adventure, or my favorite, Captain Underpants, Epa Choice O Rama. Or for the grown-ups, there's Black Mirror's Bandersnatch. Let me know in the chat if you've watched it and give it a 1 to 5 stars so I know how much you like it. And then the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and there's a series where you help her decide, should she make out or should should she plan the wedding. And then the Netflix very data metrics focus, and the product team's high-level engagement metric is monthly retention. I see Connor giving it a 4 out of 5. It's a pretty good start on Bandersnatch, which is cool. The product, the high-level engagement metric is monthly retention. At the startup, about 10% canceled every month. In 2005, about 5% canceled each month. And today, only 2% cancel each month. One of those points is because they don't have any money in the account. And the other one is because, it's summer, or maybe we shouldn't be binge watching all day. And here are 4 of the current high-level theories and hypotheses about how Netflix hopes to delight its customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. So you see 4 of those strategies in orange. There's probably like 7 or 8 happening today. But for instance, the watching experience, the proxy metric for that is the percentage of customers who watch at least 40 hours in a month. The challenge with retention, it's very hard to move and very hard to measure an A/B test if you've changed it. So these proxy metrics are aligned against each of the strategies on the left. Today, about 50% of Netflix members are watching at least 40 hours a month. The hope is if they could drive that to 50, or if we can drive it to 50 or 60%, that would actually improve retention. And some of the projects or tactics are all about even better sound and video quality. So ultra high definition, set-top box integration, shared viewing, an idea called Netflix Party, dubbing or lip sync algorithms that make it so you can hardly tell that Lupin, filmed in France, is actually was filmed in France, because it looks like it's perfect English to me with my perfectly wonky accent. So this is the 4 high-level strategies on the left, the proxy metric 1 against each, and then the projects or tactics over time. And this is the rolling roadmap. And because we're in the tail end of Q2, I'm sharing the projects that we know at this point will happen in Q2. And then Q3, Q4, and Q1, I think they'll happen, but we'll see, because we're learning and experimenting, and our plans may change. So this isn't a commitment. If you look, for instance, at watching experience, we'll be rolling out lots of set-top box integrations to make it seamless to pay, for instance. We're thinking about shared viewing in Q3. In the watching experience row, we're very focused on automated lip sync to deliver in 40 languages in 190 countries. And then we just keep getting better with sound and video quality. Or in India, for instance, we're doing a lot of work with custom mobile encodes, knowing that the bandwidth is a little bit limited in some of those areas. I often, instead of sharing the rolling roadmap, I call it an outcome-based roadmap. And so because I don't exactly know what the timeline is, I've sort of changed it a little bit here. The now row, the now column in the middle, is the stuff that we're engaged in now. And then next and consider gives me a little bit more flexibility, because often when I share a roadmap with a CEO or investor or board, they feel it's a commitment. And this is just communicating that, no, these are all sort of high-level theories and hypotheses. You see the same leading indicators as my proxy metrics before. And on the left, the strategies are the same. I've just changed it into a more customer-friendly language. I've written about this approach, which is an alternate approach in that page I shared with you. At the beginning of the year, I arm wrestled with head of marketing, finance, technology, content, asked one simple question: how do we force rank growth, engagement, and monetization? And the agreement was we'd put growth first. We're trying to get 20% year-over-year member growth. Monetization, and the way our proxy metric for that is lifetime value. So in 2005, the lifetime value of a customer was about $100. Today, that's about $290. And then engagement is measured by monthly retention. Today, it's only 2% cancel each month. The idea is that that's pretty darn good. So we're choosing to put growth and monetization up ahead. This is how we've prioritized it. So with that, I'll say thank you. I hope this has given everybody a strong sense of how we hope things that will play out with the product in 2021 at Netflix. And thanks for your time and your energy. All right, so now I'm going to go back to just being normal Gib. Everything still working, Stephen?
Yeah, all going well. All going well. So, Bandersnatch was pretty mixed in terms of, well, yeah, pretty positive in terms of feedback. All 3s and above.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's frankly 3 or above is pretty good for a new experiment. And worse.
Right. I take that.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to do some cases. Why don't we bring up Ailish, Allison, and Emma on the screen with me. Also in the chat, let me know if you've ever gone to business school or law school, because those peeps are very used to case studies. And the key thing with case study, I'm just going to give you a little bit of data, a little bit of information. You're allowed to ask me questions. And then I'm hoping that we're going to get some different point of view and we'll be able to engage in debate. Emma, you ready?
Yes.
Where are you coming from today, Emma?
Me, I'm in Belfast, but I'm in North Belfast, so I'm on the hill called Cave Hill.
Cool.
So Belfast is surrounded by hills. So.
Yeah, and I assume that's where all the cool kids live.
Obviously, North Belfast is the best. This is going to start a fight, like North Belfast is the best.
Very good. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this idea of Netflix party. I can't remember, 80 or 90% thought it was a good idea. So here's the idea. It turns out that there's a prototype of this that's already been built. About 6 or 8 engineers on Patreon did the work. They built a Chromecast extension that all of us could download today. And if we're Netflix members, we can connect with a friend, different side of the country or world, and we could watch Stranger Things together at the same time. We could chat while we're watching it. We could heckle. We could send emojis, create this shared movie experience. And this is essentially prototype. The Netflix lawyers have discovered them. They forced them to change the name from Netflix Party. I think it's called Teleparty today. And the way it works is you install this Chrome extension. You open up a video. There's a magic link that they create. So you can create your own party. And then you can enjoy watching together, any number of people that wants to watch. And I just want to give you a little bit of history, a little bit of context. By the way, Emma, what do you think of this idea? Is it good, bad, or in between for you right now?
I'm torn. I don't think I personally would put my money on it if I was a Netflix product person.
Yeah.
But I have attempted to try and do this without any kind of like syncing technologies. Because it seems like it would be a good idea, but it doesn't actually execute particularly well. So I think it's too easy to copy. I think if people wanted to do it, they could just WhatsApp and do it themselves anyway. Myself, and also I think it's the kind of thing you do individually. You don't do as a group. That would be kind of.
Hey, Allison, are you thumbs up or thumbs down?
I'm a thumbs down kind of person.
Oh my God.
So the reason being is actually I go to the cinema by myself so I can get peace and quiet and get absorbed into the film or whatever I'm kind of watching. So something like Netflix social, I would be like, no, that goes away from what I actually would normally do at the cinema and stuff. So
okay, good. Well, let me just give you some background. By the way, like Stephen, was it like 80 or 90% that said yes initially?
68%.
Oh, it's less. Okay, only 70%. Cool. Okay, got it. So I just want to give you some background. Netflix did experiment with a feature called Friends. You connect with your friends. The idea is you get great movie ideas from your friends. You wouldn't leave the service because you wouldn't want to leave friends. And less than 5% signed up for it. If you're trying to improve retention, our thinking was 10 or 15 or 20% need to engage with the feature to have a shot at improving retention. So we killed it. We call it scraping the barnacles. We get rid of all stuff just to create a simple experience. We launched on Xbox. They did Xbox party mode. And I said, it's only going to get 5%. They said, no, it's going to be much more. It only got 5%. And we killed it in 2010. And then as Netflix was expanding internationally, they couldn't afford to spend tons of money in brand and marketing and advertising. So there's this feature. If you like the movie, you could just hit a button and it would magically, reach into your email and your WhatsApp and your Facebook and send a message recommending a movie to a friend. Again, very little usage, so killed it. And the main insight that we thought we learned from this through lots of trying was your friends have really, really bad movie taste. And second, you don't really want them to know that you were binge watching Cake Boss last night. And so this was what we learned from this social experience. So here's the situation today. Netflix Party, this Chrome extension, it grew from 500,000 folks using it to 5 million in the last 12 months, which is really something. And if you look at the Google Play Store, it's at 10 million plus downloads, which they don't tell you after that. You can go check today. And the engineers are very excited about this project because they say we can launch Party on laptop next month, so we can do it for real without all that wonky downloading Chrome extension. And we'll be out on all platforms by the end of the year. And the question that I'll put to you is, will this delight in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways? So we got about 68% said yes before. And so I'm just curious to see if we're going to be changing hearts and minds. Ailish, do you think this will delight customers?
Some customers, like, Alison and Emma are testament to this. I mean, personally, I don't want anybody looking at me in my fluffy slippers, stuffing my mouth with popcorn. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there'll be some people in long distance relationships. I'm trying to think, certain types of personas, people who, because it's quite an intimate thing. It's something you would want to do with people that you trust, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it would delight a number of people, yes.
Got it. And then Emma, do you think this is hard to copy?
No, I think this is easy to copy. I don't think it's.
Tell me more. Tell me why you think it's easy to copy.
Well, just the very fact that it's a Chrome extension already shows that this is something that's not particularly like a USP or differentiator, or it's, do you know what I mean? It's not. It's almost, it's be weird. You're kind of almost losing your, like, you're not doing your first mover advantage or anything. Although I suppose you did it and then killed it. So.
Yeah. Well, so let me clarify a couple of things. Hulu does this now. Disney Plus does this now. Amazon Prime does this now. So by that, it probably is not hard to copy, correct? And then does that make you want to do it more or less, knowing those other companies are doing this?
That's a good question, because sometimes it depends. It's like, do we need to stay on par with others or not? No, it's still not making me want to do it.
Okay.
I think you want to. I think Netflix is big enough. It wants to be doing something bigger and better and different, as opposed to just
So you're pouring cold water on this idea. That's how I'm feeling right now. Does anybody any of my panelists want to pour warm water on the idea? Support it for me for a moment.
Well, I mean, realistically, it was a good idea during COVID. Let's face it, when everybody had to be apart and we were all forced to do those really awful quizzes together. Like, it probably would have been great then. I'm just sort of thinking now we just want to get out of the house, and this is our intimate time where we want everybody to leave us alone.
Got it. Well, let's put it to the audience. Let's see what they think. Okay, and we'll see if this conversation. So. The delight part, I think you got it right, which is we know it's going to delight some set of customers. The question is, will it get beyond 5% of time this time? Hard to copy, I think we did establish that actually it's pretty easy to copy. And then the margin enhancement, it's going to come around one of two different ways. First, if it got engaged by 10 or 15 or 20%, you're going to improve retention. And then the other way is if people rave about this, they tell their friends, and we bring new members into the service. So it's funny, Stephen, this very cold water conversation didn't really change other people's opinions very much.
They did not. I think it just shows that Northern Irish people are very stubborn, and they'll just stick with their first choice no matter what. So,
That's funny. That's funny. Okay, well, let's talk about what Netflix did. Netflix has chosen not to launch. And I just want to share with you some of the insights. So the first, I heard our illustrious panel saying, I don't, am I normal or not? So the way I think about this right now is the 70% of the people that lean forward, they're saying, hey, this is freaking awesome. We should do this. Now this is the same audience that together is we've brought together using StreamYard, Google Slides, Slido, right? I mean, my point is we're not normal. The most normal people are not engaged as we are in new technologies, et cetera. Netflix, based on its past history, chose not even to test it. They were so confident it wouldn't be used. And that's the main thing about Netflix. If you're trying to create a simple, easy to use service, you got to say no a lot. The real fear is if you say yes to too many things, you'll be like a Swiss Army knife with too many blades, and you're never sure what blade to use for what. And the key issue is, will this delight? And I think the panel got it right, that it's probably going to be another 5%er. And if you can't get enough people engaged, then you are not building hard to copy advantage, and you have no shot at improving retention or building more awareness and trial. And just remember, at the end of the day, Netflix is all about movie enjoyment made easy. Netflix lets us all use multiple streams. Like Kristen, my wife, and I can watch one movie upstairs in our bedroom. Britt can watch another stream, different movie, in her bedroom, and Kelsey can be on a third. It acknowledges it's really hard for people to agree on what movie to watch at the same time. And that's really not easy. And this is why Netflix makes it so easy for us to watch multiple streams at the same time. All right, thank you, panelists. We're going to keep playing. You guys ready for another one? Oh, yeah. Okay, I can see the thumbs up. Okay, so here's the question. Should Netflix auto-cancel its inactive members? So Tom Willer is the product leader in this area. He looks at the data and he notices that 0.5% of members haven't used the Netflix service in the last 12 months. They signed up for it. It's as though they forgot they signed up and they're just not using it. And he's trying to figure out, what's the right thing to do? And he says, you know what? Let's send an email and a notification saying, hey, we noticed you're not using the service. Would you like to cancel? And he knows that, frankly, he's probably not going to get a response from anyone. And so what he's going to do is just do it. He's going to auto-cancel all members who don't respond to his message. And his guess is it's going to be everyone, which is a good guess. And if he does this, he knows what the outcome is. He's going to lose $100 million from automatically canceling people who haven't used the service for the next 12 months. And the same question, will this delight in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways? Emma, will this delight?
Yes.
Who's going to be delighted?
I think the people that it gets cancelled and get their money back, but I actually think it will by proxy delight other people, because just the idea of it is such a lovely idea. Like reputationally, it would be delightful as well.
Very good. So what is the hard to copy advantage that Netflix could build by doing this?
I think it's just the fact they're so large that this is pocket change. Like when you read 100 million, you're like, oh, it's a lot. But actually, if we count it as like a percentage of their revenue, it's nothing. So, I think they're big enough they can do it, whereas other companies possibly couldn't.
Ailish, what's the hard to copy advantage that Netflix might build if it chose to do this?
Well, I suppose it's to look like you're not acting out of self-interest. So building that sort of trust and brand, and
yes,
people going, you're so ethical.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. So this is the opportunity to build trust, to build an even stronger world-class brand. And we already know the margin enhancement. We're gonna lose $100 million. By the way, you can't measure, you can't test all of these things. Like those people who auto cancel, they might be gone, but they might come back. They might be so impressed, by this thing. And other people, as you pointed out, might say, hey, Netflix is a really cool company. I don't know if people remember, but AOL, maybe no one remembers. AOL was one of the first internet services. They made it impossible to cancel. You had to call them on the phone, and somebody recorded themselves on the phone for 8 hours trying to cancel. This is just the example, the opposite, just making it wicked easy to cancel. Let's see, Allison, is this a high stakes or low stakes decision for you?
I would say this is low stakes, and the reason probably being is that social kind of responsibility and the benefit you get off that.
So you are going to pull the lever and lose $100 million. How do you feel about that?
I'm okay with that compared
Okay.
to the revenue, the other
There you go.
revenue.
So what's the revenues in Netflix today? 25 billion. Okay.
Yeah.
So my point is, most people think this is scary, but it's 100 million against 25 billion. And then if you get this wrong, you can flip the switch the other way. So it's a totally reversible decision. So by both of these tests, by magnitude and by reversibility, this is a low stakes decision. Okay. So we're going to put it out to the wisdom of crowd. I'm deeply curious to see how people all around the world choose to go on this one. Would you auto-cancel all inactive members or not? Now, remember, last time the audience went against our panelists. So let's see if we're more aligned this time around. Stephen, how's the voting going?
Yeah, we're pretty ruthless. Just like 100 million, still 100 million to to our audience. We want to keep that. I think it probably depends if you do this and you do it quietly, or do you it's a good deed, really a good deed, and if no one hears about it, I think you'd need to make sure that's a well-known good deed that you did.
Yeah, I could see wonderful chat from Robert and All Trading Secrets and Ryan and Danil. But the alignment on you're building this hard to copy advantage and the trust. But yeah, it's good to be like a punk startup wouldn't make the same decision. So I totally get it. All right, so let's see what Tom chose to do. He chose to execute this. It actually was noticed. So it was a bit of good news during COVID. Netflix will start automatically canceling inactive accounts. And so there was instantly, an even more positive brand halo where people were reflecting on, hey, isn't this the right thing to do, especially during COVID? And the stuff that I'm hoping that you'll learn is in this case, the hard to copy advantage that's being built is the brand. And Tom's assessment was that it was worth, quote, spending $100 million. His point was actually Netflix had never really earned that. So he felt like it was $100 million. It was the cost of ethics of doing the right thing and building an even stronger world-class brand. And for him, it was a low-stakes decision. It was low magnitude and reversible. So in Netflix, they just call it decide and do. So he made the decision, and then everybody lined up with him, which was great. All right, so I'm going to bring it home. So strategy. I'd share an image here of this woman who's exploring. She might go by land or by sea, but she's trying to find this route to continuing power in a significant market. That enduring, hard to copy advantage. And I want you to think about product strategies as these hypotheses about how you will delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. And I hope you see the value of these frameworks. They help you to combine a little bit of discipline. The metrics help you to measure, and are we doing the right thing? But also embrace a little bit of the chaos and bring those two forces together, because that's really where innovation comes from. And these frameworks, I hope you see how they can help you to communicate an inspired vision of the future. As product leaders, we always have to have a sort of fuzzy vision of what's next, the way Netflix is beginning to experiment with its interactive stories today, which I think is way cool. And for me, this is the thing that we're really trying to do. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up the people to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. This is from Le Petit Prince. But this is, as leaders, this is what we're trying to do. We can't tell people exactly what to do, but provide enough context so people can begin this exploration. With that, I'm going to say thank you during these stranger days, 15 months into COVID. There's one last thing. If you know me, sometimes I feel like I'm a street performer doing my best to breathe fire. And this is that incredibly awkward moment where I'm passing the hat. This is the moment where everybody usually runs, but I'm not asking for money. I would just love your feedback. So if you pull out your phone now, and Stephen will be dropping a link for asking for feedback into the chat, you can just hold up your phone using your camera app, and a link will magically pop up. It's a 0 to 10 scale. 0 sucks and 10 is great. You can choose any number you like on that scale. And then I'd just love it if you told me one thing that was good about today's session and one thing that could be better. So in the last 15 months, I've done 150 talks, workshops, and exec sessions all over the world. And I've got the survey data from each. This is my consumer science. This is my proxy metric for helping me to understand if I'm doing a good job or not. So I just want to thank you in advance for all that. This is the same exact QR code, but if you go to gibsonbiddle.com/strategy, you'll find the PDF for this presentation. You'll find my 12-part series on Medium, how to define your product strategy. You'll discover a link for my free Ask Gib product newsletter, where I will answer every question eventually. And that's my current creative challenge. So I'd love it if you'd subscribe to that. I think we're close to 7,000 subscribers. So it's been great fun. It's been another COVID activity for me. So that's my little pitch for Ask Gib. If you just type in Ask Gib on Google, it'll find you. And I'll say thank you. This was one of my guilty pleasures from COVID, Tiger King. And I'm now happy to answer any and all questions that folks have. Stephen.
Hi.
How's it going? Thanks. Hey, can we do a thanks for Eilish, Allison, and Emma? Why don't we bring them all up?
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. What do we do? Click. Cool beans. Okay, Stephen, how's it going?
Good. We have plenty of questions. We've maybe got a few minutes, so if you don't mind, Gibson, we'll maybe post a few questions. The most popular question, at least on Slido, was up on screen. It was, why do so many people get roadmaps wrong and treat them like a release calendar?
Yeah, there's two issues at work here. So you'll notice in my thinking, I start with the strategy. So how are we going to delight customers in these hard to copy, margin enhancing ways? What's our high level engagement metric, retention? What is our proxy metric for each of the strategies? And then the next question is, what are the projects or tactics we need to execute to actually drive those proxies forward? The last thing I do is a roadmap. A roadmap is actually, it's an expression of the product strategy. I think too many times people actually create the list of features that they think they need to build, and then they kind of sort of put it into a roadmap. So I would just advocate going backwards of that. What's the high level strategy? What are the metrics we're trying to move? And then ask the question, what are the right projects and tactics, and how do we fit them over time? So this is half of the problem. But the other one is, if you recall, all the language. Whenever I share a roadmap, I say, hey, I'm confident about the projects in this current quarter, but in the further out quarters, we're going to learn so much that the plans will change. And unfortunately, it's just sort of historical bias. People look at a roadmap as a commitment of what you're going to build and when, which is why I have to really be clear with investors, with CEOs, with board members, with all of those parties. I'm highly confident about this quarter, but things are going to change as we learn. Because at the end of the day, this is all hard. Like we have these theories and hypotheses. You saw it. I shared 20 high-level strategies in Netflix. Really only like 6 or 7 of them worked, and that was good enough. So just help people understand how, the extent that which a plan via our strategy, when exposed to light of day, most of it's going to be wrong. So that's my best answer today. But thank you for the question.
That's great. Thank you. So we have another question this time from a name. So not that question, sorry. From Marcus in Vancouver, actually. So what SaaS tools did you as a product leader use to create and communicate the product strategy?
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing what I use. I use Google Slides and Google Docs today, and some Google Sheets. I keep it wicked simple. My answer 5, 10, and 15 years ago would be as simple, and whatever tools were current at the time. So, and then do read my How to Define Your Product Strategy. So I take you through the step-by-step method, and at the very end in the appendix, I provide a framework using Google Slides that you can use the framework I do there. Anyways, I tend to put the work and energy into the debate and conversation and thinking, and try to make the expression of these things as simple as possible, using whatever the simplest and easiest tools are at the moment in time. I mean, I love Google Slide and Google Docs because you can share it, and then people can create notes, and they can participate in a debate and conversation where in a real-time meeting, there's going to be introverts who are shy. I just love how Google Sheets and Google Docs invites everybody to participate in the conversation, and I get amazing insight from reading the notes. It's really cool.
Thank you. We had a very recent question pop in, but it flew up in terms of the popularity. A question from Anonymous, but it is, what is your advice for startups when considering product / features that will help build the brand?
Yeah, so startups are different animals. So the main focus of a startup is delight. Okay, delight your customer. Do the things that don't scale. Just find something that, feels 10x better than something else you have. So for instance, at Chegg is a textbook rental and homework help company today. It's really struggling. It was trying to be, in the States, we would call it Craigslist for college students, a place that college students could buy and sell used stuff. That was a horrible idea. But at some point, we experimented with textbook rental as a way of delighting customers. And it turned out our hack was we would buy the textbook that students want on Amazon, send it to the student along with a note, send it back to us when you're done. And that was the hack. And we discovered that students were delighted. Instead of buying a new textbook for $200, they were renting a textbook for $70. And that was the initial seed of the idea that would turn out to be very delightful. We used Net Promoter Score. Our initial NPS was 50. We drove it all the way up to 80. And then later we started building the hard to copy advantage and trying to figure out how to build a business around it to build the margin. So with startups, it's all about delight and worry about the business and the hard to copy over time. There's great articles like Build Things That Don't Scale. Paul Graham wrote that. Frankly, most of the reading from Y Combinator is great for early stage startups. And actually, Peter Thiel's book, From Zero to One, is great for early stage startups. It's just a slightly different way of thinking. For instance, brand, don't worry about the brand till later. That's a hard to copy advantage. You just figure out how to delight your customer. That's it. That's where all your energy is.
That's great, Gibson. Belfast does definitely have a booming sort of startup scene, so I think that will be advice that's very well appreciated. We'll maybe wrap up with one more question, if you don't mind, Gibson. This is a little bit more slightly unrelated to this talk, and maybe a bit more related to one of your other talks about hacking your product career. But a question here from Anonymous as well. But what do you think is the most important skill for a product manager or leader?
Sorry. The biggest shift in the last 10 to 15 years has been about, I call it consumer insight or consumer science, the better living through math. It's developing consumer insight via qualitative focus groups, via surveys, through digging in the dirt with existing data, and then the big dog has been A/B testing. So in the last 10 or 15 years, that concept of consumer insight, of empathy, and consumer science has become sort of much more table stakes, if you will, for product leaders. So if you forced me to commit to one idea, that would be it. But if you've read my essay, Hacking Your Product Leader Career, no product leaders are the same. and I try to nicely articulate 7 sort of product skills and then 7 leadership skills that you need to develop over time to be successful. And then my concept of hacking your career is you are the product. Just like in building a product, you have to experiment wildly to figure out what works and not, and you need feedback systems. My feedback, I call it a personal board of directors. Anyways, that essay it's like I don't know, 6,000 claps on Medium, and the NPS is like 82, which is, I call that dance on rooftops. So if you're curious to get more depth, read that sometime.
Thank you. I'm sort of curious, actually. I might put that question to the other panel, Elise, Alison, and Emma, to see to put you on the spot to see what your one skill would be. I'm always picking on you, Elise, so I'll pick on Alison first.
So mine would probably be some of the kind of softer skills, actually, because you can learn all the kind of technical skills around kind of consumer model and all that. So something like communication or bringing the team with you along the road, that's probably what I would go for there.
Thank you. And Emma, what about yourself?
Alison put me at the post. That was what I was thinking of. I think, do you know what? Being a good communicator is one of those things everyone thinks they are and they put down on a CV, but it's actually really freaking hard. Even when you're consciously doing it, you're probably not doing it enough. So I'd say communication is probably that. It's probably one of the key ones. I would have gone with Gibson's as well, but I was going to think of anything above the kind of the user research and the communication. I think there's probably around collaboration. We're focusing a lot at the moment around how we get design and tech and product to collaborate together. It's a bit like the Teresa Torres concept of a product trio. I mean, if you can get collaborative working happening, especially in a blended hybrid way of working, because that's even harder, and to get that working well, I think your team is supercharged. And I think that's hard when you're in person. It's going to be even harder when you're blended and getting it through the whole way through the product life cycle, getting that happening well. And I don't know what the skill is, but the process is collaboration. I suppose links into communication, but yeah, that's working on that.
Good, thank you, Emma. And then last but not least, Elise, yourself.
For me, it's probably the ability to influence. Very much, I know a lot of people say as a product manager, you're CEO of the product. You're not. The CEO is the CEO. So you have to be able to influence. And as you have mentioned, effective communication and building trust are 2 really important things to be able to do that. But obviously, you need to, if you are going to influence, you need to be well informed, and that's where then that ties together understanding the user and understanding the strategy and being able to balance everything up. So, but you can understand everything and still not be able to influence the business. So, yeah, influence and trust.
That's great. Thank you very much. Yeah, so just thanks everyone to the panel, and thanks again, Gibson, for giving us your time this evening. It was really appreciated. I really enjoyed it. So, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Graham. I know you're hiding there, but thanks for your help, Emma, Alison, and Eilish. So great fun to be in Belfast today. I can't wait to be there in person. I was in Dublin like March, right at the beginning of the pandemic, and then I had to hustle home. So it's been a while.
Yeah, no, you definitely have to get over to Belfast. You can maybe come to one of the next in-person product events. So yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, I think you mentioned food and beer, so I'm in.
Dude, yeah, that's all it takes. So great, thank you very much. On that, that does remind me though, just that we do have as Elise mentioned at the very beginning, we do have another event coming up. We'll get the details of that out on Meetup tomorrow morning, but that will be our first in-product event, which sounds very strange saying that at the moment. So yeah, hopefully get to see some of you there. And you never know, you might even see Gibson at some point. So thanks everyone. Speak soon.
Thanks everybody. Goodbye.